Good evening, you're watching Estuary News. I'm Hugh Riches. In the headlines tonight, a man dies following a collision in East Yorkshire, a new flood alleviation scheme for Cottingham, and a community rallying to save an historic pub in Goxhill. And celebrations all round with my guests today. Later in tonight's programme, Ted Stanley and others join me to announce the winners of a short story competition. And before that, Estuary TV's Leah Nietzsche raises a glass to toast this channel's 3rd birthday. A cyclist who died following a collision with a lorry in East Yorkshire on Friday has been named. 55-year-old Ian Milner of Driffield was riding his bike towards Sledmere when he collided with a white Iveco tipper lorry travelling in the same direction on the B1253 close to Cowland Crossroads at around 3:15 in the afternoon. He was pronounced dead at the scene by the air ambulance crew. The driver of the lorry was uninjured but treated for shock by paramedics. Officers are continuing to investigate the circumstances of the accident. There's been a sharp increase in the number of suicides in England and Wales. 2016 has been the worst year on record. The Howard League for Penal Reform says that 102 people died behind bars, with a prisoner taking their own life every 3 days. Her Majesty's Prison Humber has seen 4 suicides this year and 2 reported cases at HMP Hull. Francis Crook, Chief Executive of the Howard League, said cutting staff and prison budgets while the prison population has increased has created a toxic mix of violence, death and human misery. A new report preventing prison suicide has recommended that urgent action is needed and that prisons must become safer, healthier places to reduce suicide risk. A pub in Goxhill is calling on residents to join a campaign to save it from being converted into a housing estate. The Friends of the Brock have launched and extended a community share scheme which, if successful, will enable the residents of Goxhill to own the pub and manage it professionally.
The pub was bought by a property developer who has got planning permission to put 8 houses on the site and has given the community a year to save the pub, basically, after which time, if we can't save it, it will be converted into 2 houses.
The essential thing is that we need to raise £150,000 on a share offer from within the village or surrounding. We don't mind where the money comes from, to be honest. We just need to raise that amount of money, which would then enable us to actually gain available grants and possibly any loans as necessary to top it up to the complete amount to actually refurbish this pub.
Proposals for a new flood alleviation scheme to benefit Cottingham and Orchard Park will be on display this week. East Riding Council and Hull City Council are working together to reduce the threat of repeat floods. Ground surveys and computer modelling of rainfall have been carried out in the Hull and Halton Price area. Proposals have now been drawn up for the scheme, including 8 water storage lagoons in the area, which will reduce the risk of flooding for residents of Cottingham and Orchard Park. Approximately £21 million have been secured to fund the scheme, planned to be complete in 2019. The proposals will be exhibited at Cottingham Civic Hall between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. on Thursday. North East Lincolnshire and NG have now completed work to install 32 new pay and display parking machines across the county. The new machines at 13 car parks allow debit and credit card payments, including contactless payment, along with payment by coin. The new machines have been installed at Cleethorpes Boating Lake, Cartergate in Grimsby and St Peter's Avenue in Cleethorpes and many other places. Work to replace the machines started in the summer and saw some of them relocated to more suitable locations. On tonight's Hot Topic, I'll be talking to Chris Haskins and Mark Tinsley. Here's a preview of what they had to say.
And the way you have cheap food is to open your boundaries to food coming in from America and whatever. I don't mind that as long as the Americans aren't subsidising their farmers. But of course they subsidise their farmers too. We could end up in a situation where we're competing as farmers, and I'm a farmer too, competing as an unsubsidised farmer here against huge American farmers who are subsidised. Now that will be crazy, but that could happen. And I think it's very likely to happen.
Time for our weekly reflection strand now. This time it's the turn of Lee McMunn, Associate Minister at St John Newland in Hull.
Do you know what your name means? Normally we pick our names because of what they sound like or maybe what's popular. But back in Bible times, they chose names because of what they meant. And that's particularly true with the name of Jesus. I don't know if you've ever thought about what his name means, but it literally means God to the rescue. So when his parents were picking the name, they didn't pick it because it sounded cool or because it was in the top 10 popular names of the first century Jewish world. No, in fact, they were told to call him Jesus because it meant God to the rescue. Now, I love that because at Christmas time, everything's so busy, but maybe you want to think about, what is Christianity all about? Where do you start? Well, I'd say start with the name of Jesus because it tells you two crucial things about him. It tells you who he is, he's God, and it tells you what he came to do. God to the rescue. So when you're busy at Christmas and you want to know what is Christianity all about, just remember one name, Jesus. It means God to the rescue.
I'm joined now by Leah Nietzsche, executive producer of Estuary TV, to celebrate this channel's 3rd birthday. Leah, welcome. Thank you for coming all this way.
As always, it's a pleasure.
To come into the studio. 3 years. It doesn't seem like that, does it?
I know. It just seems like we've blinked and it's just gone by, hasn't it?
Did you ever think we'd last this long?
Yes, I did. I really did. But I knew we were putting the pressure on being the first ever to launch. We were on our own in the network for a good 5 to 6 months before London came alive. So no, I knew that we'd really start to fly once we got to our 3rd birthday, and I think we have.
And how is this idea of local television doing? We're not the only ones in the market now, by a long chalk.
No, I mean, there are 21 stations now, and by the end of 2017, I would expect maybe another 7 to have come online. So we'll be hitting that sort of golden 30.
Does that mean that local television has succeeded? It's an idea that's proved itself. It's a novelty that's demonstrated that it can work commercially.
Yeah, I don't think it's demonstrated that it can work commercially everywhere yet. I think there are some individual stations that are showing that they can. And let's be honest, it's any commercial business that starts in a recession as well is going to take some time in order to get its way into the marketplace. And don't forget, we've got established media like our print media locally and our radio media, and we've got to show our mettle in that market and show that we can give customers good results.
So how are we doing? We're getting our job isn't to make television programmes. Our job is to gather an audience like shepherds and present them to advertisers. What sort of audiences are we gathering?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking between sort of 20,000 to, in some peaks, 28,000 viewers a day. We're getting some very good responses from our new programming. What the model always was, as you've alluded to, wasn't that we'd make all of the programmes, that we would actually start to build an industry around us, and we're working at any one time with around 15 independent producers that are locally based. We've helped start up some new companies, and so that process is really starting now, and most of what you see on the channel aren't Estuary produced, they're independent produced, which is what we wanted.
And are we getting the advertisers then? If we're getting that audience, which sounds terrifyingly large, if we're getting that audience, are we selling that successfully to local businesses?
We are, and what our aim is to make sure that we've got entry-level points for all types of different business, because we've got lots of small to medium enterprises, we've got lots of one-man bands, we've also got larger companies as well, and what we've done is successfully attracted those people who wanted to just dip their toe in the water, but we've also very proud to have our new channel partners. We've got Lavell's estate agencies now working with us, and we've also got Smile Data Security, a data company as well, and they're long-term contracts that we're working on all sorts of different things.
And that's Lavell's estate agents brought us, of course, Jo Pritchard and her fantastic programme.
That's right, and Property Hotspots, which is going really, really well, one of our most watched programmes at the moment, and we've just negotiated that will go on to Sky TV as well on the Property Channel.
I've just been told I mispronounced her name, Jo Pickard. My apologies to her. She was sitting there just a couple of weeks ago. You talk about those independent producers that we're supporting, or that we're not supporting, they're earning their way with their customer, as it were. Yes. Are they all local, or are we getting people in from other places, and we're getting sources of programming from other parts of the country as well? We're
getting a mixture. We're getting some independent producers from away who are coming to us and talking to us. We're also getting larger broadcasters now wanting to work with us on a range of archive material. but we're also working with our local producers to talk about the types of things that our barb data is starting to tell us, our broadcasting research board data is telling us, so that we can work with local companies to say, this is the area that we think you should work in. So it's very enterprising and entrepreneurial and all those things that we hoped it would be.
Now, of course, in order to thrive and to expand and to grow, we need to raise capital, of course, not just trading our way through capital. Any possibility of being listed on the stock market?
Maybe one day. Maybe
All right.
one day.
I noticed that it's soon going to be Christmas, Leah. What are we doing for Christmas? Any special programming?
We've got some programming called Christmas Nationwide, which is produced by CTVC, which is a London-based company, but the programming is headed up by the BAFTA award-winning Chris Hees, who's Hull-based. So that's been something that's been produced at all of our partner stations with Chris Hees at the helm. And that's going to include some A-listers in there,
Okay.
but that's celebrating Christmas.
That sounds good. And we've also got a few fantastic Christmas films coming up,
We have.
including my absolute favourite, African Queen,
Yes.
Catherine Hepburn and Humphrey Bogart, directed by John Huston. Not long enough for me to explain why that is the best thing to watch at Christmas. Leah, happy birthday.
Thank you, and to you.
And thank you so much for coming on. Cheerio. Join me after the break. We'll have a roundup of the latest sports news, and I'll be joined by Ted Stanley and others to unveil the winners of a short story competition. Welcome back. You're watching Estuary News. Still to come tonight, all the latest sporting action, and we will be announcing the winners of a literary competition. A new youth club will open on the Nunsthorpe estate in Grimsby tomorrow. The Oasis Youth Club, which has been funded by Awards for All from the Big Lottery Fund, will hold a session for 8 to 12-year-olds from 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. It opens for 3 weeks in the run-up to Christmas, then expands into January, moving to Wednesday evenings and including a group for 11 to 16-year-olds. Michelle Dorner, Hub Coordinator, said they identified the need for a youth club on the Nunsthorpe estate, and they're hopeful that they can meet the needs of young people through facilitated activities and support. The club is run in conjunction with a range of agencies, including Oasis Academy, Nunsthorpe and Wintringham, YMCA Humber and Humber Police. Now I'm joined by Ted Stanley, Angeli Vierney and Peter True for a big announcement of the literary competition. This is the University Centre Grimsby short story, not short story?
The International Literary Prize.
International Literary Prize. Now, we will delay the announcement of the winner for a moment or two. You better explain your roles here. What was your role in the competition, Pete?
Head judge, apparently.
Head judge. And was there much fighting on the judging committee?
Well, no. Well,
there was a little bit.
Yeah, ordering only, but not the actual stories that were shortlisted. We were pretty.
And Angela, you were a judge as well.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Impressed by the standard of writing that came across your desk?
Yeah, there were loads of great stories, you know, and an enjoyable day reading them all, and obviously, you know, the winners that were chosen were excellent. So yeah, fantastic. And
I mean this in the most respectful way, but what on earth are your qualifications to judge writing?
Well, Ted, who's running Hammond House Publishing, asked us to judge the competition because we're tutors on the professional writing degree at the University Centre. And
that is, I think, internationally known as one of the finest professional writing degrees available to mankind.
Thank you. Yes, we think so.
Ted,
yeah.
Forgive me. You're the presiding genius behind this idea.
No. I'm staying out of this. Nothing to do with the judging at all. I stayed well clear of the judging. I just facilitated it.
How many entries did you have, and from how wide an area?
We had nearly 100 entries from 5 continents. So we had entries from all over the world. And although the judges weren't aware of it, the shortlist that they drew up included entries from Australia, Canada, New Zealand, America and Japan even.
well, Japan's particularly impressive as a non-English speaking country. That's absolutely
Well, indeed,
fantastic,
yeah.
isn't it? Shall we move on to the main business of the day? And who would like to tell me, first of all, who were the nominees?
Well, we drew up a shortlist, which included Ode to a Loving Husband by Amy Naylor, Tomorrow is Another Day by Deyanira Adriuf, apologies, The Deaths and Deaths of Winston Witherstone by Marina Harrison, Meeting Your Maker, Olivia Vielder, that'll do, But Beautiful, Sophie Wellstead, and Senshukt by John Ashbrook.
Also, The Beekeeper by Joe Fuller, After the Fall, Gemma Hoff, Dialogue by Ian MacDonald, Vivian by Katie Southall, Cause and Effect by Amanda Staples, The Goth's Cross by J.A. Grierson, and The Jigsaw by David Brennan.
Okay, so quite a lot of reading for you for that long
Yeah.
shortlist. You've got a couple of, a few highly commended as well before we get on to the main prizes.
Yes, just quickly, just the titles. Highly commended, Meeting Your Maker, Ode to a Loving Husband, Tomorrow is Another Day, But Beautiful, Senshukt, and After the Fall.
Okay, Angela, you're going to tell us who took third place for the
Yeah.
£50 prize?
Yes. So this was a really enjoyable read. I think because it starts off as a kind of touching tale about a father-son reunion, but then it takes a turn that you wouldn't expect to a bit of a darkly comic conclusion, which had me kind of, I kind of didn't know whether to be laughed or shocked at the end, which I thought was a great reaction.
What is it?
It is Cause and Effect by Amanda Staples.
Second place, Pete?
The Beekeeper by Joe Fuller. I think the form and the voice of the narration was striking. It reminded me of some sort of beat poet, some Kerouac sort of figure. It was wonderful.
Oh, you are an old hippie, really, aren't you? And first prize, who is the big winner? Drum roll and Angeli, announce.
It's The Deaths and Deaths of Winston Witherstone by Marianne Harrison. And we were all in agreement that it was a really well-written story, witty, original, and again with a bit, a bit of an unexpected
Congratulations to her, £500. But more importantly, Ted, the anthology of the stories of some of the certainly all the nominees, this beautiful book.
Yeah, the original intention was that just the top 3 would be in the anthology, which also includes stories from students at the University Centre. But we've been persuaded to include all the highly recommended ones as well.
So in total there are 27 stories, I think, in here?
There are 27 stories in there.
Very quickly, because we've got to stop. Where can people get it?
They can get it at the moment from the Hammond House website. That's hammondhousepublishing.com. And after Christmas, it will be available in bookshops and online all around the world.
Okay, brilliant. Congratulations, a fantastic project, and I look forward to next year's competition as well.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Time now, I'm afraid, for the sports. There'll be changes to the Hull City side for their EFL Cup quarter-final tomorrow night. That's according to head coach Mike Phelan, who's been speaking to the press today ahead of the game at the KCOM Stadium. And he says he hopes going far in the Cup will help rub off on their league form.
Well, every game's another game. We've progressed in this Cup, and now we get to this stage. It's important that we try and maintain momentum. And the team that will play tomorrow will be strong. And I've got to use the players. I think we've got probably 3 or 4 players that haven't played minutes up to now. And going into sort of a December time, we need to get them out on the grass. So we'll be using them, but we should be in reasonably good shape and strong.
City drew 1-1 with West Bromwich Albion on Saturday, with captain Michael Dawson scoring the Tigers' only goal. Harry Maguire was an unused substitute in the game, but is expected to come into the lineup for tomorrow's match. And he says they need to improve their defensive game.
For ourselves, especially as a defender, we've not been happy with how many goals we've been conceding in the Premier League. We've shipped in far too many, and usually over the last 3 or 4 seasons that's what we've based ourselves on, clean sheets. So like you said, tomorrow night is something that I'm sure we'll work on, and we'll try and get a clean sheet which we can build on.
Scunthorpe United's lead at the top of League One has been cut to 4 points after they were held to a draw at home on Saturday. Dwayne Holmes scored United's only goal in their 1-1 draw against Oxford United. Meanwhile, Grimsby Town lost 3-2 at Crawley Town as Marcus Bignot suffered his first defeat at the helm of the Mariners. Omar Bogle was yet again on the scoresheet, scoring both of Town's goals in the game at the Checkatrade Stadium. North Ferriby United failed to build on last week's win against Sutton United, losing 2-0 at Solihull Moors. The Villagers have now dropped back to the foot of the National League, a point behind second bottom York City and 5 points adrift of safety. Hull FC captain Gareth Ellis says he'll be following in the footsteps of his heroes when he takes the number 13 shirt next season. Having worn 11 since his debut for the Black and Whites in 2013, Ellis's switch means Dean Hadley takes his old number, and the skipper says he's looking forward to emulating his heroes like Ellery Hanley and Andy Farrell in 2017. And finally, ice hockey. Hull Pirates defenceman Jaroslav Sasok has today left the club. Head coach Dominic Osmer put the decision down to a change of tactics. The 26-year-old departs, having made 22 appearances for the Pirates. And that's all for the sport. Just time to remind you, Conflict, the award-winning short stories, edited by Ted Stanley, available, well, pretty much everywhere, Ted.
It is, yeah.
Okay, and online?
It is online.
Through Hammond House.
But at the moment, the best place to buy it is the Hammond House website.
Lovely. Good luck with that. I look forward to reading it. If you have a news story, true ones though, please, visit our Facebook, Twitter pages, email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 01472 31553, or you can write to us at Estuary TV, Nuns Corner, Laceby Road, Grimsby, North East Lincolnshire, DN 345BQ. For now, good evening.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Hello there and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Tonight, patchy cloud and light winds. Temperatures will fall rapidly with lows of -6 degrees. Tomorrow we'll have a frosty start, warming later into a mostly sunny and dry day with highs of 5 degrees.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Good evening, you're watching Estuary News and I'm Hugh Richards. In the headlines tonight, a robbery in Scunthorpe, handing back the keys to an art gallery in Hull and celebrating the great local high street across the Humber. And my guest tonight, Richard Gurnham, tells me about his latest book, Unearthing the Tale of Victorian Prostitution. A 31-year-old man has been injured after shots were fired by police officers in Hull. Armed officers were deployed to the Holderness Road area shortly after 9:20 this morning, following reports of concerns for the safety of the public in relation to a man seen near the post office. The man, who can't be named, is now receiving medical attention. An investigation is underway and the incident has been referred to the Independent Police Complaints Commission. Police are appealing for information following a robbery in Scunthorpe. This happened on Frodingham Road at around 7 p.m. on Sunday when a 25-year-old man was approached by two men down an alleyway. One of the suspects grabbed him, threatening him with a penknife, and demanded he hand over his wallet. The victim handed it over, containing £100, which he'd previously withdrawn from the cash machine. The two men walked away towards Diana Street, leaving the man unharmed. Anyone with information about the incident is asked to call Humberside Police on 101. Today marks exactly 89 years since Hull's Ferens Art Gallery opened to the public, and it reopened again today after 15 months of major refurbishment works. The contractors, George Holton & Sons, have handed back the keys, and staff are ready to begin the mammoth task of rehanging the gallery's collection, ready for Hull 2017.
I've known this building and visited the gallery many, many times myself, and now I see it refreshed. And you've got to think, when the public do come into the gallery, they'll see a little bit of what we've done. A lot of the work is out of sight. The mechanical and electrical equipment is all in plant rooms and above the galleries. And also we've replaced 700 roof panes of glass in the roof lights. And so, as I say, you see the finished surface of the building, which is fantastic, but there's a lot of work that you cannot see.
What we were trying to do is create a gallery that could show some of the best pieces of art from across the world. And in order to do that, it has to meet certain regulations. So it's about temperature control, fundamentally, and also light from the sun. So we spent a lot of money behind the scenes in terms of special glazing systems, heating, cooling systems. But on top of that, whilst we've done that, we've given it a really good spit and polish. So we've new decoration throughout, really bringing out some of the heritage features of what is a wonderful neoclassical building.
On December the 3rd, Small Business Saturday will make a song and dance about your local high street. The annual event began in 2013 and its aim is to celebrate small businesses and their contribution to the local economy. Kevin Hopper of the Hull and Humber Chamber of Commerce explains why small businesses are vital to the area.
It's a national event to help support small local businesses, to sort of counteract Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and to get people to go and buy local, whether it's fashion, food, things like that. So yeah, just to support local economy really. It helps by obviously putting money locally, you're supporting your local businesses, the staff, you think like your next door neighbour that works in a shop down the road, it's going to help support them, keep them in business, and help just locally keep things different, because the small shops are really what keep things different to the sort of national chains. Well, I think it's nice to just get out and actually speak to people. Too many people now on social media, all they want to do is just, like you say, just buy online. Looking at things like myself, it's always nice to go in a shop and try things on, because I don't know whether I look nice in something. It's always better to get someone else to tell me. So yeah, I think it's things like that, just getting out, meeting people, and again, just supporting the local economy and the local people.
This week is Empty Homes Week, and North East Lincolnshire Council, along with its partner NG, is highlighting how empty properties can be brought back to life. Running until Friday, the campaign highlights the help on offer to bring empty homes back into use. They represent an ideal opportunity for anyone looking to take their first steps on the property ladder, or for developers looking for properties to fix up and sell. The council can advise property owners how to bring a home into use, find a buyer, or simply look for a property to renovate. The latest figures for North East Lincolnshire show there were 1,385 homes listed as empty for more than 6 months, up to October. A new tennis court redevelopment in Hull has been given the green light, with more than £100,000 in funding. Following a successful bid by Hull City Council to the Lawn Tennis Association, a new tennis court and a hard surface playing area will be built at Costello Playing Fields. Hull Culture and Leisure, in partnership with the Lawn Tennis Association and support from the West Area Committee, developed the proposals for the new facility. Construction work is scheduled to start in the new year, and it'll be completed by the spring. A team from Hull have won an award for their work with musculoskeletal disorders and physiotherapy. HealthShare Hull, commissioned by NHS Hull Clinical Commissioning Group, won the General Practice Award for their work to provide a one-stop shop for services for people who live with musculoskeletal disorders. The team was challenged to find an approach which would offer patients a choice of service and the ability to self-refer. Patients have been linked through their primary care to a number of other services, including rheumatology and pain management. There are now 2 hub sites in Hull where patients can be assessed, scanned and treated in a single visit if appropriate. Now, a new book brings to life the story of the poor women in Victorian Louth, Horncastle and Grimsby. Author Richard Gurnham joins me now to tell me more. Richard, thank you so much for coming in. When we say the poor women of Horncastle, Louth and Grimsby, we're specifically talking about the prostitutes.
We are, yes. We're poor women, very often from nearby villages, who ended up working as prostitutes in these towns.
Now, let's take the towns one by one,
yes.
As it were. Perhaps Grimsby is the most obvious place where there might be a demand for prostitution, an economy in that industry, if that's what it is. But Louth?
Yes, well, it's a surprise to many people, but Louth was, as one contemporary said at the time, swarming with prostitutes. We're talking about the 1840s and the 1850s especially, and into the early 1860s as well, and then it tends to become less of a problem. But yes, farmers coming in on market day were clients, local artisans, especially young men wanting a bit of fun, and no doubt the very respectable middle classes, but it's very hard to find the evidence.
Well, a little discretion might have been
indeed,
pulled over,
yes.
Over the windows there.
Indeed.
Horncastle, though, there is a reason where you might expect, where there is activity there that is likely to bring in...
Well, there's the horse fair. It's enormously popular, the biggest horse fair, I think, in the whole country at one time. And that would certainly have been a major factor. They had other fairs as well, and markets, of course, so there would be the usual clients, as in Louth, but also a peak during the horse fair week.
Is this some sort of psychological thing that when blokes are away from home, they're at a fair or something that takes them away from home, and they get a little bit...
May well be.
Energetic.
Indeed, indeed. But I think life in the villages was pretty boring. A farmer would come and sell a few pigs and sheep. He'd have a pocket full of cash. And of course, he was a target for the local prostitutes, who would be only too pleased to pick his pocket.
Well, let's go. We'll talk about the girls in a moment, but Grimsby, that may be a little bit more obvious where there's a market for prostitution in Grimsby, because it's from the 1850s onwards anyway, because that's when the fishing started, and people spend a long time at sea, they get a little bit lonely.
Absolutely. Yes, the ladies would be waiting for the men and boys, because we're talking about fisher lads, some as young as 12, coming off the boats, coming off the ships, and corporations, not corporation.
Freeman Street.
Freeman Street, Cleethorpe Road or Cleethorpes Road, Victoria Street, Edward Street, Burgess Street, which has disappeared now. But all those, especially the north end of Victoria Street and Edward Street, were, well, the police, I think, gave up, really. It was such a huge problem or way of life that
cat houses all around Ryby Square.
Indeed, yes.
Now, these poor old girls. I mean, nobody really sort of grows up wanting to choose this as a profession, do they? What drove them to it?
Well, some were born to it in the sense that their mothers were brothel keepers and they never knew anything else. The great majority were poor girls coming from the countryside, from the nearby villages, sometimes quite distant villages, simply desperately needing work. They would arrive in Louth or Grimsby or Horncastle or Lincoln or Boston, any market town, no work, needing work, nowhere to live, they were a target again for the brothel keeper, for the experienced prostitute come brothel keeper. They would offer them companionship, work and somewhere to live, which were the three things they most desperately needed. And many girls, I think, we're certainly told this by Victorian contemporaries, thought they could escape from poverty, but very few did. They're coming from poverty, but very few escaped.
So very few of them managed to be the high-class courtesan.
Very few, very few.
Fairly squalid life.
It's a squalid life. We're really talking, we're looking at the very bottom of society. Most fortunately don't seem to stay in it. Unless they become brothel keepers,
they manage to get out.
They get out.
Richard, we'll come back and talk a little more about it in the second half. Please don't go away. Join me then after the break. We'll have a roundup of the latest sports news and a bit more from Richard Gurnham. Welcome back. You're watching Estuary News. Still to come tonight, all the latest sporting news and a little more from Richard Gurnham. Recruitment experts are talking to students in northern Lincolnshire about the diverse job opportunities on their doorstep. Members of the recruitment team for Scunthorpe, Grimsby and Goole hospitals are visiting local schools to encourage pupils to think about a career in the NHS. They've so far visited 2 schools with more dates to follow in the new year, explaining the opportunities available at Northern Lincolnshire and Goole NHS Foundation Trust. The apprenticeship scheme, which was launched in November, provides people of all ages with a chance to learn as they earn over a 13-month period. The apprenticeships are designed for people with little or no experience of working in the health service. North Lincolnshire Council says it continues its commitment to concessionary travel passes as part of a national scheme. Across England, older people and those with disabilities are entitled to free bus travel between 9:30 a.m. and 11 p.m. on weekdays and all day on weekends and bank holidays. In North Lincolnshire, residents are entitled to additional free travel. Pass holders across the county can travel for free at local buses at any time of the day, and they're entitled to free or discounted travel on local rail services. There are currently over 30,000 concessionary pass holders in North Lincolnshire. The council reimburses bus and rail operators for the free travel. And free parking will be offered across the East Riding during the 4 weekends running up to and including Christmas. The scheme will apply to all council-run on-street and off-street car parks with pay and display machines advising shoppers there is no charge. It'll coincide with Small Business Saturday, a national day that aims to promote the importance of small and independent traders. Councillor Stephen Parnaby said the scheme has real and tangible benefits for both local businesses and motorists. The scheme starts on Saturday from 8 a.m. until 8 a.m. on the following Monday morning over the weekends. And still with me in the studio is Richard Gurnham telling me about his latest book, Poor Women and the Great Social Evil, Prostitution in the 19th Century in Louth, Horncastle and Grimsby. Now, I suppose we sort of look back on these, it's costume drama we think of, and that's how we imagine these times, and it's all a little bit dainty. But I would guess that 19th century prostitution was a pretty horrible and sordid business.
It was horrible and sordid. It's nothing like the comfortable Hollywood image. 90% or more of the women I write about in here are very poor women indeed, living in the most horrible conditions, desperate really, just needing to make enough money to pay the rent and buy some food.
You said also that their customers were victims in a sense as well, and that once they were seduced by the loveliness of the girls on the streets or in the brothels, then that they were then very likely to be victims of crime.
They were. They were indeed, and I think we only know about a small proportion of the thefts because, of course, many would be too embarrassed to go to the police to admit that they'd even been in a brothel. We only hear about it when it's really large sums of money, hundreds of pounds, when a farmer has, as I said, sold his sheep or pigs, got a lot of cash, and the ladies have first got him very drunk and then emptied his pockets. But I think it was pretty common.
And there's likely to be some sort of pimp round the back of the pub with a big stick.
Very often was the case, although the great majority of women were seem to have been working independently. But you do come across, though the word pimp is never used, sometimes the word bully is used. Yeah, I do come across this, but very often the women were quite capable of robbing their customers without the help of any man.
There is this sort of change in language as well, and prostitution, I suppose, is one of those areas where there's always a lot of slang, sort of criminal demi-monde, as it were. If you were gay in the 19th century, that meant something quite different to being gay today.
That meant you were a prostitute, yes. And
a female prostitute.
A female prostitute, yes, very much so, yes. And a gay house was a brothel. And I didn't know this until I started going into the subject, but that's true.
It's it's looking through. It's beautifully illustrated, the book,
thank you.
But I'm looking at all these buildings, which, as somebody who knows Louth and Horncastle and Grimsby quite well, I think of as perfectly innocent buildings where I'd be perfectly happy to take my mother for a cup of tea.
Absolutely.
And it turns out they've got a rather more interesting history.
Indeed, many of them have, yes.
Half the buildings I spend my weekend afternoons in turn out to have been brothels at some point in their career.
Yeah, well, it is amazing. Well, it was so many women are involved in this industry, shall we call it, in the mid-Victorian period, that it was inevitable. And pubs were the obvious meeting places and picking up places.
What was the attitude of the authorities? Because the law, I think the law was always a little bit difficult. Disorderly houses were illegal, but if you were, as you say, trading independently, as it were, what was the position there?
Right. Well, the great majority of the women who were picked up by the police as prostitutes were actually charged with being drunk and disorderly. Riotous behaviour was the term often used in Grimsby. It was difficult to catch people running a brothel because you had, until the late 19th century, you had to have complaints from the neighbours. Well, most of the neighbours didn't complain.
It paid off or part of the business?
Yes, or the area was not the sort of area where people contacted the magistrates or the police.
Okay.
You know, it's very poor areas usually, and so brothels usually got away with it for a long time.
It's a fascinating book, Richard, and where can people get it? It's £9.99.
That's right. Well, you can get it in the bookshops in Louth. I'm hoping it'll soon be in the bookshops in Grimsby, or you can contact me if I give you my email address.
Very quickly, please, Richard.
richardiangurnham@gmail.com.
Thank you very much, Richard. Fascinating piece of social history. Thank you so much. Time now for all the sports news. Hull City's playoff final hero Mo Diame should get a good reception on his first return to the KCOM Stadium since his summer departure. That's according to current Tigers boss Mike Phelan, who was Steve Bruce's assistant when the midfielder propelled City back into the Premier League before departing for Newcastle. The Magpies are this evening's visitors to Hull in the quarter-final of the EFL Cup.
I think he should get a good reception. You know, he's put some service in. He's had his ups and downs with injuries when he was here, but I think most of the time in my time here, he's proved to be a very good player. And he's taken those skills now to Newcastle, and obviously he's doing something right because he's helping them be top of the league.
Scunthorpe United defender Murray Wallace admits he was pleased with his side's battling spirit against Oxford and says he was happy to take a point from the game. However, he says that there was a feeling of disappointment immediately after the 1-1 home draw as they didn't perform at their best. The draw, however, keeps the Iron 4 points clear at the top of League One. Meanwhile, Grimsby Town's reserve team game, which had been scheduled for this afternoon, was called off. They were supposed to face Rotherham, but it had to be postponed due to a frozen pitch. On to rugby union now, and Hull Ionians lost 57-31 at Cambridge, while Scunthorpe lost 35-10 at home to South Leicester. Meanwhile, Hallensians suffered a heavy 52-19 defeat at Acklam. Josh Langford made this incredible solo effort to open the Halencians' tri-count against Yorkshire One's bottom club. John Steele then went over for the second of the away side's 3 visits across the whitewash before Ollie Dynan rounded off the scoring. It leaves Halencians down in 9th place in the division. And that's it for tonight. If you've a story, then please visit our Facebook or Twitter pages. Details may well be appearing below me any minute now. Email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 01472315553. Or you can write to us at Estuary TV, Nuns Corner, Laceby Road, Grimsby, North East Lincolnshire, DN34 5BQ. Just a reminder of this rather fascinating social history of northern Lincolnshire in the 19th century, poor women and the great social evil, prostitution in Horncastle, Louth and Grimsby 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago. And Richard, just remind us of how people can get it.
Well, from bookshops in Louth and soon in Grimsby, and from me, Richard Ian Gurnham at gmail.com.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Just a reminder, if you want to get back in touch with us, Facebook, email, or you can write to Estuary TV, Nuns Corner, Laceby Road, Grimsby, North East Lincolnshire, DN34 5BQ, news@estuary.tv, 01472315553. I impress myself by the way I can make this go up and down, just almost at will. A piece of complete television magic. As always, thank you very much for watching. From all of us here at Estuary News this evening, until tomorrow, good evening.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Hello there and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Tonight, patchy cloud and light winds. Temperatures will fall rapidly with lows of -6 degrees. Tomorrow we'll have a frosty start, warming later into a mostly sunny and dry day with highs of 5 degrees.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Good evening, you're watching Estuary News. I'm Hugh Richards. In the headlines tonight, a man has died following a Humberside police shooting in Hull. The Hull Waspy Group challenges the Prime Minister in their fight for equal pension rights for women. And I'll be joined on the sofa by Kelly Thompson from Emmaus as they appeal for help for the homeless this Christmas, and by Jerry Smith, who'll be along to tell us about a new show coming to Louth's Riverhead Theatre. A man shot by police in Hull has died. Officers were called to the scene where a 31-year-old was reportedly wielding an axe in the Charles Street area of the city yesterday morning. Humberside police fired more than one shot at the man during the incident. A taser was also discharged. Following the news of the man's death, Independent Police Complaints Commissioner, Associate Commissioner Tom Milsom said, "Our thoughts are with the man's friends and family and all those affected at this very difficult time." The Humberside Police and Crime Commissioner, Keith Hunter, has also released a statement this afternoon in which he says that the incident should give us all pause for thought. He added that his deepest sympathies go to the relatives and friends of the deceased. Police are investigating an attempted robbery carried out by a masked man in Scunthorpe. He entered a 24-hour store on Ferry Road in the town, carrying a weapon and threatening a member of staff for the cash. This was reported at 3:45 this morning after the intruder left the store empty-handed in the direction of Buckingham Street. The chair of the Hull branch of WASPI, a group fighting pension inequalities, says the women of the UK could rise up against unfair treatment. Councillor Mary Glue has called on the Prime Minister to listen to the Women Against State Pension Inequalities group, which was formed to campaign against what they call the unfair way that the retirement age of women born on or after the 6th of April 1951 has been implemented. The group was hoping for a mention from Chancellor Philip Hammond in last week's autumn statement.
Theresa May is a member of WASPI Club, the WASPI Club herself. She was 60 the other week. So, you know, although she won't be affected directly by the changes, she should be listening to the women of Hull and the women nationally. 2.65 million women affected nationally and over 10,000 in Hull. She should be listening and government should be taking note of their concerns. If they don't, I would say beware government, because the women of this country will be rising up.
They just ignore us as always. That's how it's going to be, I'm afraid, unless we apply more pressure. I think the time of writing letters and being polite, those days are probably over, and we really need to become more radical without being too radical, but we need to step up the game a bit, I think, to get them hopefully to take some notice of us.
I've never personally been informed that my pension age was going to be 66, and I heard about the ladies on Radio Humberside, and yeah, and it's a great group, and you don't feel alone anymore. That's the thing for me, because I felt really alone.
Thanks very much to Estuary TV. You know, you're really helping us get the message out there. And, you know, the other press reporters are very good in Hull. So we need the press to get behind us so we can actually get that message out there to people and say to them, you know, these pension changes are really affecting your life. And you need to speak your mind and you need to say how it's affecting you, because we want to hear it.
Residents of Gox Hill have been called to join a campaign to save a pub from being converted into a housing estate. The Friends of the Brock have launched and extended a community share scheme which, if successful, will allow the residents of Gox Hill to own the pub and to run it professionally. The pub has been in a state of disrepair for some time now, and this campaign aims to transform it into a social hub for the Gox Hill community. Fred McNamara has more.
We've just extended the deadline for the share offer to help the community buy this pub and get it up and running as a pub for the 21st century, family friendly, and the heart of the village again. The pub was bought by a property developer who has got planning permissions to put 8 houses on the site and has given the community a year to save the pub, basically, after which time, if we can't save it, it will be converted into 2 houses.
The essential thing is that we need to raise £150,000 on a share offer from within the village or surrounding. We don't mind where the money comes from, to be honest. We just need to raise that amount of money, which would then enable us to actually gain available grants and possibly any loans as necessary to top it up to the complete amount to actually refurbish this pub. So we've actually extended this offer, one of the main reasons being that until we've actually finally got a price agreed with Keegers, and that is proving difficult, once it's agreed, then people will be more committed to actually seeing it's going to happen and will therefore be more likely to be buying shares in it. People are just holding back a bit until there is a genuine likelihood that it will go ahead. We are very confident it can go ahead, but if you're going to be committing money to it, you need to be fairly sure.
We've we've got the business plan all worked out. We've got plans for refurbishing the pub, because as you can see, it looks a bit sorry for itself. And it will become a fantastic building with a restaurant serving nice pub grub and a family-friendly bar, space friendly for dog walkers, etc. We've set up a company, a community benefit society, that will be able to buy the pub and then lease it on to a professional landlord who will run it professionally. So although it's going to be owned by the village, it's not going to be staffed by villagers on a voluntary basis. It's going to be professionally run, and it should be a fantastic building. We're now selling shares in that company, and because we're still negotiating the asking price with the developer, we've just extended the share deadline to the end of February.
I think the fact that it is a community-owned asset, it's so vital. It isn't going to be down to a brewery to run it as they wish. It will be run as the village want it to be. We've done a very good market survey and really know what the village want in their village pub. And this did decline quite a lot over the last few years, and it wasn't as popular as it had been because of that. By refurbishing it, relaunching it as a real community asset, back to the heart of the village as a social centre, this way it can be a really a vibrant and successful village pub, and the village needs a village pub.
Now I'm joined by the first of my guests this evening. Kelly Thompson from the Hull homeless charity Emmaus is here to talk about its appeal to help the homeless this Christmas. Kelly, thanks very much for coming in. How many people are likely to be homeless this Christmas in Hull?
We have just completed the rough sleep account for both local authorities, so Hull and the East Riding, and we anticipate collectively there's currently around 33 people sleeping rough. We do have provision for those people to access emergency accommodation, and that is our work now, to get those people into services to take them out of the streets.
And of course the rough sleepers isn't necessarily all the homeless, there's a hidden homelessness problem as well.
There is. There's obviously the sofa surfers and people bedding down with friends and family. So there's a huge issue out there, some that we don't understand to its fullest extent.
Now what do you want to do to help? What does Emmaus do?
Well, we offer accommodation, so we're currently housing 28 formerly homeless people in our new residential, the Orchard in Hull. We also offer those that live with us an opportunity to come off welfare benefits and work again, which is quite unique in its approach. We also have a range of social enterprise activities with volunteers that are involved in those, and we go out onto the streets and deliver a rough sleeper outreach support service too.
So what's that, a hot meal and warm clothes?
Predominantly we go out and we're the sort of interface between the rough sleeper and the services that can help them. So we signpost them to appropriate services, but we will hand out things of essential need, blankets, sleeping bags, and make sure that people inevitably are safe.
If people would like to help you with this, how can they contribute?
They can get in touch with us via our website or give us a ring. We very much are appealing for donations this Christmas to help us with that rough sleeper outreach work. We have huge enterprise shops and we're always looking for donations of furniture and clothing, so that helps us as well. And people can really bob that into one of our shops or give us a call and we'll collect those items.
And you're looking also for people who are willing to go out on the streets and do the
we definitely
the work itself.
Yeah, volunteering is a huge part of our service, so if we can get extra capacity and people involved in that, that would be wonderful.
Now, a big issue in Hull in recent weeks, of course, has been the Tent City protest that was put up in Queen's Gardens.
Yes.
Were you involved in that, or did you have a chance to have a look at that?
We were involved in that. We deliver the rough sleeper outreach service, so when Tent City arrived to Hull, we actually met them within minutes of them getting there to make sure they were aware of the services available to rough sleepers, and we actually thought they might have been rough sleepers, but as it turns out they weren't.
Who were the people organising the protest?
Yes.
Oh right, they went off and stayed in a hotel or something, did they?
On the odd night I think they did, yeah, and they returned home. But we did make a commitment alongside Hull City Council to work with each and every rough sleeper that did attend Tent City. Very thorough assessments were made and each of those people were offered temporary accommodation. It was quite a controversial event in that those individuals were advised by the protesters to hold out for a flat and not to engage in temporary accommodation. So it was quite a challenging period, to say the least.
Sure. I'd love to talk more about that and about the strange name, Emmaus. It's French, I think, in its history, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Kelly, I will just ask you if you don't want to just repeat those contact details if people want to get in touch.
Yes, our website, www.emmaushull.org, is a wealth of information.
Brilliant. Kelly, thanks so much for coming in. Join me after the break. Dan will bring us a roundup of all the latest sports, and Jerry Smith will join me to talk about a new show in Louth. Thanks, Kelly. Welcome back. You're watching Estuary News. Still to come tonight, Dan brings us a roundup of the latest sporting news, and I'll be joined by Jerry Smith to talk about a new show coming to Louth. Part of the M180 was closed earlier today, but it has now reopened. A large goods vehicle crashed into the central reservation of the main road at about 10 this morning, causing a large diesel spillage and long tailbacks. The fire service and police have been in attendance for much of the day, but the road is now flowing as normal. 34 artists who challenge perception of modern art have contributed to a new exhibition at Scunthorpe's 2021 Visual Arts Centre. Radical Craft, Alternative Ways of Making is the latest exhibition to open at the popular town centre venue. Included in the exhibition are Dalton Getty's incredibly intricate sculptures carved into the lead of pencils and Angus McPhee's shoes crafted for giants out of grass cuttings. 21 of the artists featured in the exhibition were chosen from open submissions, and many of them are self-taught and face barriers to the arts due to ill health, disability or social circumstances. A new dementia-friendly waiting area for people attending Grimsby's Diana, Princess of Wales Hospital for outpatient appointments has been created thanks to a charity. The Health Tree Foundation has spent over £17,000 creating the relaxing new area after it received a wish from staff working in Zone 4 of the outpatient department. Patients previously had to wait in chairs in the corridor before being called for their appointment. Now a new dedicated waiting area has been created and refurbished. Now with me is Jerry Smith, here to tell me about a new show coming to Louth's Riverhead Theatre. Jerry, welcome. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, Hugh. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, the Riverhead Theatre, a lot of people very well known in Louth, of course, but easy enough to get to. Who's putting on this show?
Well, it's a Louth Playgoers production. It's our own show. And we're emulating a popular show from the 70s called The Wheel Tappers and... Wheel Tappers and...
something to do with railways, anyway,
that's right.
Isn't it?
Wheel Tappers and Shunters Social Club, I beg your pardon.
Righto.
And I don't know if... I'm sure quite a few of your viewers will remember this from the 70s. It was in a time when the northern club circuit was all the rage. You know, you've got the Batley Variety Club and all those social clubs in Leeds, up north in Newcastle and all those places.
Lots of comedians there in velvet bow ties and frilly fronts to their shirts.
Exactly, you've got those old style comedians that were all the rage in the 70s. Of course, this in a way is a thing of the past. Things have changed. So we thought it would be a nice idea to put on a variety show because we've got acts from all over the world. I beg your pardon, all over the world. So
right. Thank you, Jerry.
I was determined to get that joke in. Lots of local acts, you know, local to the area, not just to Louth, but around and about. We've got lots of singers and dancers, and we've got a magician. And really what we're trying to do, we're turning the Riverhead Theatre for one night only into this northern club. In the days when the entertainments manager or the MC would sit there with his bell, calling order, introducing the acts.
There's a flat cap theme, I believe, isn't there?
There is, that's right. In fact, in the original television series, a comedian of the time who was very popular called Colin Crompton used to wear a big flat cap, a bit like a sort of baker boy hat that they used to wear in those days.
Yeah, you haven't got it with you. Yeah.
Well, I haven't got it with me now because I did bring my brother, who is the MC for the evening, but
Right.
he's in the other room at the moment with his flat cap.
Not allowed in, righto.
But he used to introduce the acts, and he used to call order, and he used to give out all the rules and regulations of the club, and they'd play bingo at the interval. We will, of course, be playing bingo at the interval. It's all part of the ticket price. Bit of fun, you know, there'll be some nice little prizes to be won, but it's all part of the ticket price. So really what we're doing, we're recreating that 70s feel. But it's a fun variety show for, you know, just for a pre-Christmas fun.
And it is a Christmas show, is it?
It is. Well, it's got a sort of Christmassy theme. We're going to decorate the theatre out. We've got the Grimsby Philharmonic Choir, who are going to sing carols and other, you know, popular, shall we say, seasonal songs. We've got a magician, Andy from Sutton-on-Sea. He's a great magician, good old friend of mine. He's going to do some magic. We've got all sorts of things, singers, dancers. We've got Sophie Watkinson's, what are they called? Let me see what they're called, because I don't want to do dance. And there's three groups. There's the little children, sort of younger boys and girls of about 12, 13. And then we've got the, I don't want to call them wrinklies, that wouldn't be fair, but they do like a Zimmer frame dance.
The more mature.
You know. So we're managing to go through the whole, you know, the sort of 3 generations, if you like, that will all be represented at the Playgoers Theatre.
Now, this is for one night only, I'm afraid.
One night only.
Which night is it?
It's on December the 14th, which is a Wednesday, at 7:30. And the idea is to really decorate the theatre, to turn it into that type of club from the 70s. A bit like, if you like, Phoenix Nights, which a lot of people know from the television with Peter Kay. It's that sort of idea, you know.
Sort of old-fashioned variety.
Good old-fashioned variety show.
Crooners and a few hoofers.
That's
and
right.
A few gags.
And it's a way of putting on an excuse to put on a show, but hanging it on a theme, you know, rather than just doing a...
How can people get tickets?
Well, all they've got to do is ring the Riverhead Theatre box office. I'll give the telephone number.
Yes,
if you
please,
like,
very quickly.
Which I can remember, 507 600 350, or the website, which is louthplaygoers.com.
Jerry, absolutely have a wonderful show. Look forward to seeing it. Thank you
That's
very
lovely.
much for coming in.
Thank you for asking me. Thank you.
Now, our long shared torture is over. Dan Kemp, thank goodness, is back with all the sports news.
Hull City made history last night as they progressed through to the EFL Cup semi-finals for the first time in their history. They beat Newcastle United on penalties in a dramatic night at the KCOM Stadium, where goalkeeper Eldin Jakupovic was the hero. The visitors scored just one of their 4 spot kicks to further his claim to start regularly in the league. Earlier in the night, Congolese striker Diamersi Mbakani was sent off after going head-to-head with Newcastle's Jamal Lascelles, leaving the Tigers without their target man for the next 3 games.
I spoke with the referee afterwards because I wanted to make it pretty clear what I was going to say afterwards. I'm disappointed on both parts, really. I'm disappointed that he retaliated, which gave the referee no option but to make a decision. But I was also disappointed from the point of view that I didn't think he got much protection the whole game, to be fair. And in a moment of madness, he's reacted and he's paid the price.
Meanwhile, Newcastle manager Rafael Benitez says his side were guilty of switching off after scoring the opening goal against 10 men.
We can learn for the future because we played really well against a Premier League team away, and the team was doing so well that I was pleased, but they said, listen, still nothing, we have done nothing, so we have to score and we have to win. Then with one less player, for them, we had so much control. There was a question of time. We scored the goal, and then when you say no, now it's done, we made a mistake and we allowed them to score. So, too many things that we can learn, but a lot of positives because the team was doing, for me, quite well.
North Ferriby United were also in action last night. They lost 3-0 at Chester City in the National League, meaning the Villagers remain bottom. Elsewhere today, Grimsby Town Director John Fenty has called a £250,000 bid for leading scorer Omar Bogle derisory. Speaking to the Grimsby Telegraph, Mr Fenty says they wouldn't even consider an offer as low for their talisman. Meanwhile, the club have confirmed they've sold in advance of 2,500 tickets for their away trip to Doncaster Rovers later this month. The game takes place at the Keepmoat Stadium on the 17th of December and sees the Mariners make their shortest league trip of the season. On to rugby now, and Hull FC's reserve team head coach says he's excited by the prospect of two of the club's new additions. The Black and Whites have recruited Nick Rawsthorne from Halifax and Hull-born scrum half Jack Ray from the Leeds Rhinos, both of which are expected to feature heavily in Richard Horne's reserve team in 2017. And he says he's looking forward to seeing what they can bring. And finally for now, the Hull Pirates have confirmed that their Boxing Day clash with the Sheffield Steel Dogs has been rearranged. It'll now take place on Tuesday the 27th of December. And that's all for the sport.
Oh, it's good to have him back, Dan. You have my eternal gratitude. That's it for tonight. If you have a story for us, then there's just time for a quick look at the weather picture. If there isn't, then here are the contact details. news@estuary.tv, 01472315553. Here are the contact details. We will have a weather picture for you tomorrow. I know it's a particularly beautiful one. As a matter of fact, sunset over the Humber. From all of us here for this evening, until tomorrow, good evening.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby. With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.
Good evening, you're watching Estuary News. I'm Hugh Richards. In the headlines tonight, an update on the Hull shooting. We hear about Small Business Saturday and an appeal from a local food bank hoping to help more people this Christmas. Plus, I'm joined on the sofa by Chris Smith, here to talk about celebrating 50 years of Bransholme in Hull in 2017, and Sheila Granger to talk about breast cancer. But before that, Michael Nilsson will be here with some more poetry. Hull's Siemens development has officially opened today with a production of the first wind turbine blade. Over 1,000 jobs will be created by the development, which will supply the wind farms off the east coast. 90% of all jobs created at the site on Alexandra Dock in the east of the city are predicted to go to local workers. Reports today have named the man shot by Humberside police on Tuesday as 31-year-old Lewis Skelton. Officers were called to the Holderness Road area of the city on Tuesday morning before the incident moved to Charles Street off Freetown Way. Mr. Skelton was reportedly wielding an axe before a taser was discharged, and he was shot, according to the Independent Police Complaints Commission, who are now investigating the incident. Following news of an attempted robbery in Scunthorpe, which we covered for you yesterday, a man has now been arrested. A masked man entered a shop carrying a weapon and threatened a staff member for cash during the incident at a 24-hour shop on Ferry Road at around 3:45 a.m. The 33-year-old is now in police custody as part of continuing inquiries, but Humberside Police are still looking for anyone with information to come forward. Various items of jewellery have been stolen from a home in Grimsby. Humberside Police are seeking information on the incident, which occurred around 2:30 yesterday afternoon on Down Station Road. A 47-year-old man returned home to find a man leaving his bedroom. It's said that the man then threatened the victim before running through the house and out of a patio door. The suspect, who made off on a bike towards Great Coates Church, is described as white, late teens to early 20s and around 5 foot 8 inches tall. December the 3rd, this coming Saturday, is Small Business Saturday, which aims to recognise the impact small businesses have in the local area. The event will celebrate the ways local and independent businesses serve their communities. Kevin Hopper of the Hull and Humber Chamber of Commerce speculates on how the businesses themselves will recognise the event.
Well, as much as I said that social media, people doing that, I think they do need to get out there on social media, let people know what's going on, possibly give discounts for the actual day. The local council, North East Lincolnshire Council, are supporting it by free parking around the local area, which I think is a massive thing. I think parking sometimes puts a lot of people off. They're having to pay for the parking as well. So I think that's a really big help. And I think just banners, things like that. And I think if people can team up, you've got places like Seaview Street, Abbey-gate, obviously it's quite a small enclosed area, they could put things above, and obviously Seaview Street as well is up for a national award, so I think it'll help support that, definitely. I think there'll be a lot of advertising about it locally, social media. I know the council are sending a bus tour around for the last 4 or 5 weeks. It occurs on this Saturday, 3rd of December. And like I say, hopefully people are going to put offers on and just make it a special day for people to actually go around and shop and enjoy it. I say go and try a few things on, I think it's probably the key thing.
So in general, it's a celebration of
it is. It's a celebration for your local area, local community and local businesses, yeah, definitely.
A survey by the Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents suggests that parents need more help to keep their children safe. The Society's research reveals that 61% of parents believe that the most prolific killer of people under 18 is either cancer or suicide, when it is in fact accidents. The study also shows that accidental deaths across all age groups are rising. Yorkshire Mesmac are calling on the community to stand in solidarity with those who've been affected by AIDS on this World AIDS Day. They're asking people who are concerned about the disease to visit their website, mesmac.co.uk/book, BOOKIVTEST. It's organised by the Yorkshire-based Sexual Health Organisation, which will join people around the globe in marking World AIDS Day. It was the first Global Health Day and was held for the first time in 1988. Volunteers running an East Riding food bank are appealing for more people to come forward and support their cause. We went along to the facility at Cottingham Zion Church last year in the run-up to Christmas. Now they're once again appealing for volunteers and food to help support the local community in need of extra support. The food bank currently runs 2 days a week between 10:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m.
We've seen an increase in our attendance on Wednesdays and Saturdays as the weather gets colder, and as people's circumstances change, and the benefit cap is making a difference already. So we feel as though we're doing what we can, but it's an enormous job.
I'm really worried about the lack of benefits and the problems when it's a cold winter like it looks as if it's coming to be now. And it's a sort of hidden need to a great extent. So I think this is a really useful thing. And also, it's a really nice group of people who come, and also the group of volunteers. You know, we have it's just really enjoyable and very sort of supportive, so I enjoy it. So.
We're aware that there was a need in Cottingham for help for people who are on low incomes and have financial difficulties. and we wanted to see if we could meet that need. We are looking for donations of food, obviously, and donations of money so that we can buy food in if we don't have enough on the shelves. And we're looking for their general support in the cause that we're trying to follow. Certain things we get a lot of. We get a lot of pasta sauces, rice, and tin foods. We do not give away any fresh food because we haven't got the facility to store it. So it's tins and packets. But we're happy to receive anything because we have other outlets. Okay. If we find we can't use them, other outlets to pass them on to.
The thing is, people keep coming. And they sit down and they'll have a cup of tea, and I think they form friendships. It's become, for a group of them, sort of quite a social, I say social club in some respects, but it's also very welcoming to anybody new who comes, and I think that hopefully they can feel that and they will come again. Most people do come again. You know, I think we've only had very few people that come once and for whatever reason, you know, they don't come again. But on the whole, you know, we get people coming in on a regular basis, which is really satisfying, I think, in itself.
Now, I'm very glad to say that I'm joined again by Michael Nilsson, local Grimsby poet. Michael, we cut you off mid-poem when you were on here last week, and I apologise for that. That was extremely rude of us, entirely my fault, and I'm very grateful to you for coming back. Thanks very much for being here. Before we go any further, perhaps you better read us a poem from your new collection.
Yes, OK. This is a poem about when I was in my early 20s. Of course, I'm a different person now, and I wouldn't condone this kind of behaviour. It's about when I used to go to the discos. So I prowled the disco looking for a mate. I was getting desperate because it was getting late. I scanned the dance floor in a drunken haze. I spotted her dancing with her tipsy mates. I staggered up to her, shouted something crass or droll. I had to shout because the speakers were intrusively loud. Next thing I know, we were in my mate's borrowed bed. I woke in the morning with her sleeping next to me, not remembering what either of us had said. In my sobriety, I was eager to quickly get away. I phoned a taxi for her because it would have been awkward for her to stay. Whilst we were waiting, I gave an embarrassed smile. I promised I'd see her in a little while. Next week at the disco, she was waiting there for me. I sidled by as if I didn't see.
Michael, you're a naughty man.
I was.
I guess
not so much now.
Guess we've all been there. This is your second, it's volume 2 of selected poems. Just get the details out there. £9.99. Where can people get it?
It's on the shelves at Waterstones at the moment, along with my first book, and you can also get it at Amazon. Okay, brilliant. And it's wonderful. This is not your cheap, slim volume of poetry. You get your money's worth here. This is a thick tome, and that is because the first volume was very much these are works going back some time. Yeah, early 90s, over 20 years of writing. Yeah.
And what are the themes that you've revealed in this perhaps less guarded work than there were in the first one?
Yes, less guarded, Ewan. It's more revelatory. I've decided to throw caution to the wind. I was a bit cautious with my first collection, but I thought this time I'd open up more. The stories of when I was... There's a lot of true stories, like when I was mugged when I was in Luton. And... to cut a long story short, they jammed a gun in my eye, and I was blind in my left eye for 2 weeks. I was in hospital for a week because they were high on crack and they wanted my bank card. I was at a speed bank machine late at night and they were waiting for me and they jumped me.
This is tough to turn into poetry, Michael, subjects like that. And there's drama like that, but I think there goes on to sort of a more spiritual aspect in some ways as well.
Yes, there's religious and philosophical poems too. I read a lot of different religious texts. I'm not particularly religious per se. I'm more eclectic, and I take elements from different religions,
different philosophies, and
yeah,
different things to get there. Selected Poems, Volume 2 by Michael Nilsson, Amazon and Waterstones. Michael, thank you so much for coming back on again.
Thank you.
That's it for the moment, I'm afraid. Join us after the break when Dan will bring us a roundup of all the latest sports news, and I'll be joined by Chris Smith to talk about the 50th anniversary of Bransholme, and Sheila Granger talking about breast cancer. Welcome back. You're watching Estuary News. Still to come tonight, Dan will be bringing us a roundup of all the latest sports news. A little later, I'll be talking to Sheila Granger about breast cancer. But first of all, I'm with Chris Smith discussing the 50th anniversary of Bransholme Estate in Hull.
Hello.
Chris, sorry. Thank you for coming in. Bransholme Estate, 50 years next year. You're celebrating how?
Well, it's the as everybody knows, it's Hull's UK City of Culture, and we were looking for something that we could do on Bransholme, and then it's been a while that we've been realising actually it's been around as Bransholme for 50 years as well, so it's a 50th birthday. So we thought we'll celebrate the 50th year of Bransholme in the City of Culture and do lots of arts activities that can get as many people in the local communities involved, and so we feel a real part of 2017 and what's going on.
And if people do want to get involved, you better how do they get into contact with you?
Well, get in touch with us at Bransholme Community Arts Enterprise. We've got a Facebook page. The email's easy. It's admin@bcae.carew.co.uk, which a lot of emails in Hull are Carew. And the telephone number is Hull 821 053.
Now, what sort of estate is it? It's 50 years old. It's quite modern.
It's huge.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's some people claim it's the biggest housing estate of its kind in Europe. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's good enough for me.
And in that it's all having its birthday in 1 year. I suppose it was all put up quite fast in a short space of time.
Well,
back in the 60s.
It was built over a lot of years. So the first people moved into the Dulverton bit of the estate in 1967, but obviously it's been growing ever since, and there's been lots of additions to it, like the big shopping centre and
1960s architecture comes in for a bit of stick, doesn't it? Maybe it's a bit more popular. It's getting a bit of revival these days, isn't it? Being fashionable. Is it a beautiful place?
Well, it is, but not necessarily for the architecture. Some of the 1960s architecture has already been knocked down, but it's a surprisingly green place. It's an awful lot of people live there, but it's surrounded by really nice countryside and lots of green open spaces, lots of trees, and it's quite nice clean air.
Give us a few examples of these sort of art events that are going on next year, or that you're planning, or that you're hoping for.
Well, we're starting off working with lots of young people. There's 7 primary schools, 2 secondary schools and 2 special needs schools on the estate. So we're going to be working with these schools, getting the kids to make artwork and things, and other community groups like church groups, or we already have groups of older people that we work with regular, and so each one's going to make a little exhibition. And so they'll have their own little exhibition, and we're going to explore what's of importance to them, and about living there. And it isn't just about the heritage and history of the place, of which there's a lot. It goes back to the Doomsday Book. Does the area there was
1087? I add pedantically, but yeah.
Well, yep. There's the River Hull was made out of marshland, where the monks that lived on Bransholme dug out the marshes to make the River Hull and the drains. There's lots of interesting things.
You also want people to get back in touch with you if they have stories about it, history about it.
Yeah, we also want the personal stories about people's lives, their roots and how they came to be there, and what they think of it. But also, it's not just history. We also want to know what people want for the future as well. What are people's aspirations? And what we find is, it's really surprising the diversity and interesting things that people come up with.
Chris,
so we're looking for people's stories and their poetry, and we also want to give them opportunities.
Have a very happy birthday next year,
Yeah.
Chris. Thanks so much for coming in.
Yeah.
Time now to go over to Dan Kemp with the sports news.
Hull City's reward for making the semi-finals of the EFL Cup is a home and away game against Manchester United. The draw was made last night following United's 4-1 win over West Ham, and we'll see the Tigers play in the last 4 of the competition for the first time in their history. City beat Newcastle United on penalties on Tuesday evening. In the other semi-final, Liverpool will face Southampton after the Saints shocked Arsenal 2-0 last night. Hull will travel to Old Trafford on week commencing the 9th of January, while the return leg at the KCOM Stadium will take place 2 weeks later. Meanwhile, head coach Mike Phelan, who'll be returning to his former club for the games, has been having his say on the performance of goalkeeper Eldin Jukupovic. He was the shootout hero on Tuesday evening, but has been second choice to David Marshall in recent months.
Yeah, I was pleased. I was pleased for all of them. Eldin has been in the cup competitions all the way through. He's performed well, and going into the penalty shootout, he was probably the right goalkeeper to have there because his record's pretty good in those situations.
Grimsby Town have confirmed that they've now sold out their full allocation of tickets for their trip to Doncaster Rovers in a couple of weeks' time. The Mariners will be backed by 3,051 travelling fans for the game at the Keepmoat Stadium on Saturday the 17th of December. On to rugby, and Hull FC star Carlos Tuamavave believes the competition for places will be beneficial to the squad heading into next season. The Black and Whites have bolstered their options in the halves and at centre with the acquisitions of Josh Griffin, Jake Connor, Nick Rawsthorne and Albert Kelly. Tuamavave, who featured heavily at standoff last season whilst also playing in the centres, thinks having plenty of options in those positions will be a positive for the squad. Hull Kingston Rovers chairman Neil Hudgell says he can't thank the Robins fans enough for their support after they passed the 4,000 memberships sold for next season. He says that reaching the milestone has fired everyone at the club up and that their next target is to surpass their 2016 sales while they were in Super League. He also says that it will help to generate extra funding for Tim Sheen's squad and will put the club on good financial footing as they look to plug the £1 million gap left behind by their relegation to the Championship. And that's all for this sport.
Thanks, Dan. Now I'm joined by Sheila Granger here to talk about women feeling their breasts, Sheila, which seems like an absolutely fascinating subject to me. What's the event called?
So the event is Check 'em Out Live.
Check 'em Out Live. It's so Sid James, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
Where and when is it happening?
So this is at the Lightstream Stadium in Hull on Sunday between the hours of 10 a.m. and 12. It has obviously that name attached to it because we wanted to grab people's attention, but it has obviously got that serious side to it as well, in that I'm a hypnotherapist, which is really about how people think. And in Hull, they have a higher mortality rate from breast cancer because of a late diagnosis. Not as many people turn up for the routine scans that they're asked to go to at the hospital. And it's either down to a fatalistic attitude or a fear or embarrassment. And part of the reason for the event is because a lot of ladies, we don't even know what to look for anyway, to be honest with you. You know, we might have a little bit of a feel around in the bath, but, you know, we don't really know what we're looking for. So we've got, on a serious note, it's going to be a fun event.
Right.
But on a serious
it. Yeah.
side, you know, we've got a breast surgeon from Castle Hill coming to teach ladies, you know, what to look for, how to self-examine themselves.
So there's a specific sort of procedure you should get. I'm sorry, there's a dreadful thing I'm doing with my hands, isn't it? I do apologise.
Sit on them or
something.
something.
But there's a particular sort of procedure, a routine that you should go through when you're trying to find sort of lumps and unusual sensations and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, if just one person from that event goes away knowing what signs to look for and perhaps comes across something in the future that then get examined, that then goes on to save their life, then I feel like I've done my job. You know, the event has been very much worthwhile. So, and the point is that early diagnosis is the secret to surviving breast cancer and to defeating it. Most cancers, in reality, most cancers, the secret is early diagnosis. But the good thing, as it were, about breast cancer, if there is a good thing, but the sort of happy thing is that it is easy to detect fairly early, unlike other cancers that are sort of further inside you. Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much where, you know, from self-examination can help, but the other side of that is that it's critical for people to attend the screening that they're invited to attend. And well, you say fatalism, that stops people turning up in Hull especially. Why are the women of Hull more fatalistic than people elsewhere? Well, all I'm going by really is the feedback that I've had from talking to some of the breast surgeons, to, you know, because obviously when people ring up and they cancel their appointments at the hospitals, they're asked, you know, is there a reason why you can't turn up? Yep. And some of the response that they're getting is that, well, if I've got something, I've got something.
Okay. The event is happening at Sunday Lightstream Stadium in Hull, and people should just turn up to...
People can
to check them out.
To check them out.
Okay. Sheila, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
That's pretty much it for tonight. There's just enough time to see tonight's weather picture. Extremely beautiful. That's from Tom Wilson. Well, again, you can never tell. Is it sunset or sunrise? I need a compass. If you have a news story or any pictures for us, then please visit our Facebook or Twitter pages, email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 01472 31553, or you can write to us at Estuary TV, Nuns Corner, Laceby Road, Grimsby, North East Lincolnshire, DN345BQ. A very packed programme this evening. My thanks to all of my guests this evening. Until tomorrow, good evening.
With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby. Hello and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Tonight will be breezy and cloudy during the evening, staying dry though with lows of 2 degrees. And tomorrow will be mainly dry with sunny spells, becoming cloudy with possible rain. A little warmer than the last few days though, with highs of 9 degrees. With university courses on your doorstep, there's lots of reasons to study at the University Centre Grimsby. Sponsored by the University Centre Grimsby.